And by the sound of the bell, ladies and gentlemen, we are live from, well, Staten Island, terrible borough. This is Technoid's special Halloween edition. Well, judging by the calendar, it's October 7th, so you'll probably see this on Halloween. But welcome, everybody. Tonight is a very special episode indeed. Welcome into everybody joining in. This is a little late night, not normally what I do, but I appreciate everybody that's coming on, that's joining in. We got our first man, Gene. It is good to have you on tonight, Gene. Make sure you hound it. And also, hashtag Mod Squad. If the mods are coming in, hashtag Mod Squad. Get that blue wrench in there. Show them who's boss. All right. Enough excitement. I'm super excited, guys, because tonight, this is truly an honor. Normally in your lifetime, at least from my experience, you hardly ever get these moments. You hardly ever get the moment to say you've met a childhood inspiration and a childhood dream come true. Very rare do you have those moments, especially in the tech world, because these big guys nowadays, they see Craig Federighi and all them. But very rarely do you ever get the chance to say, I got the chance to sit down with somebody that I've always wanted to meet since I was a kid. And tonight, guys, this is a dream come true that's been 15 years in the making for me. So I'm about to bring on a woman who, in my opinion, is not only one of the greatest comic book artists working in the comic book industry today. I am bringing on a woman who is solely responsible for creating some of the greatest Halloween memories that I have as a child, as a man, and soon when I have my own children, I'll make sure to get them in the same vibe, but that's for another 7 years. But who knows? But I'm bringing on a woman who is well respected, well deserving of all the praise that she has gotten, and someone that I have had the privilege to have met twice at New York City Comic Con. And tonight, I got a chance to sit down and talk to her. So enough talking, enough blabbing on. I want to introduce you all to a very special artist, a great woman from the 2 times that I've met her. Her name is Jill Thompson. Some of you may not know her, but by the end of tonight, you're definitely going to know. So without further ado, here she is, the fabulous, the beautiful, the stunning, charismatic, pumpkin drawing, Godmother hat wearing, witch wearing. Ugh, I'm terrible with comebacks. But ladies and gentlemen, Jill Thompson. Jill, welcome.
Hi. Wow, that is a heck of an introduction. I am super flattered and a bit humbled for you to say all of those really wonderful things about me.
Well,
Thanks
listen,
for having me on your show.
Hey, Jill, the pleasure is all mine. Listen, like I said, 15 years ago, I was 5 years old, sitting on a TV watching Cartoon Network on Halloween, and we know exactly what we're talking about. We'll get to it because people will find out. But never in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought I would be at least locked in my house anyway, but sitting face to face, digitally, in front of the woman who is responsible for some of the best moments of me growing up. So I want to personally, as I said before we started the show, and I'm going to say it again, thank you for coming on tonight. Thank you for taking your time to appear on my show. I know you're very busy. I know you've got a lot of things. And already we've got people welcoming you on. My best friend, Sneed Mobile Tech. Nice to see you on the show, he says. Aloha from Chanel. He's from Hawaii, so he gives his aloha greetings. So let's explain how this is going to go, guys. So this is a Halloween theme episode. Now, obviously, I'm not really into the best of traditions, so
I don't know. You never know. There could be like a shadow person behind you in that bed. Yeah, this is like I've watched. Has anyone seen that horror movie that's on Amazon Prime that takes place all in a Zoom meeting? Because like they made it in between in the I think it's called Host.
Host, yeah, I think I've heard of that. Yes.
Watching that. When I usually work, I work a lot of times late into the night, but I don't want to just go to bed right when I'm done drawing. I figure like I gotta unwind a little bit. I'll sit, I'll watch TV. I'll use more than one room in my house. So I feel like sometimes I just go from my bedroom to my kitchen to my drawing table back to my bedroom. And I was like, let me sit down on the couch and watch television. So I decided I was going to watch Host. Well, it scared the hell out of me. It's not a good thing to watch while you're quarantined, and but this is a good month for it. But it spooked me like crazy. So I wouldn't half expect to see the pillow behind you floating in the air, and I'd be like, turn around.
Well, you just got me thinking. So we're about to do something real quick. I'm about to turn on extra lights now.
No, it's
But
the bright bedroom show instead of the spooky bedroom show.
yeah, well, you can see my mother has a thing for pink, and that's where I do all my live streams. I love pink. I don't care what anyone says. Real
It's
men
a
love
very
pink.
southern color.
Of course. All right, enough talking. We're 5 minutes in. Let's explain how this is going to run. So, guys, Jill is going to be a guest on the show. I don't know if I'll ever get this opportunity again, but we're going to try to know most about her from my viewers. I also have some questions I would like to ask her. I'm pretty sure you've heard these questions asked before, and I'm sure they're going to sound repetitive, but I will try my best to be as different as possible, but I don't know. I'll try my best. But also, basically, it's just to have fun, because the tech world, in my opinion, Jill, is full of just a bunch of geeks that team up with other techie guys, and they're just super, super restricted. They can never branch off. And I'm that one guy that's like, you know what? I'm going to knock down the barrier. Let's do something different. So I hope I'm doing something different tonight by bringing on.
Understand tech stuff, you would be a genius.
You should ask my mom about that. She'll tell you. I'm the go-to in the family. I'm like, oh, if a MacBook breaks, go to Mike. If an iPad doesn't work, go to Mike. So there you go.
I might ask you a tech question before the night is over.
Absolutely. You are more than welcome to. But anyway, guys, let's start this up. After this is done on replay, hashtag replay crew. I love to do hashtags. I don't know. I got hooked on them. But after the replay, I will leave timestamps to certain designated parts of the live stream. Should you want to get to your favorite part, should you want to know something. But let's start off with a little bit of background on you, Jill, to let people know who you are. So I'll give you a quick synopsis, and then you can go into as much detail as you like. The floor will always be yours. I'm not going to interrupt you. But basically, for those of you that do not know who Jill Thompson is, she's obviously right there. But Jill is, in my opinion, like I said, she is one of the most well-known, respected comic book artists and also creator. She has risen, in my opinion, from some of her best works, from not just being original, but what she's done on the DC area. And focusing on DC for a second, and I know you've done other things, Jill. You are most known, from what I can tell, from the community and doing my own bit of research. You are well known for creating arts like Wonder Woman, which is a staple on your platform, Swamp Thing, Black Orchid, and then the Sandman, which is one of the most, I would say, more recognized nowadays because they're making a TV show on DC. I hope you're involved. They better get themselves a good.
I'm not involved.
I would have
Artists
loved
are
to.
usually not involved in stuff like that. But
I would have loved to have seen some of your artistic. Oh, what's up?
I look forward to watching it. Definitely.
Well, I'm telling everybody right now, she is part of that comic series, and honestly, your artwork is phenomenal. I don't think I've ever seen, in my opinion, I don't think I've ever seen such a different take on things that are so well known. So my first question, and then you could give us some background, is when you get called in to do these artworks, obviously you have to take your own spin, you have to be different, but also respect the source material. So when you got called in to do Wonder Woman, Swamp Thing, and Sandman, and work with Neil Gaiman, what did you do, or how do you approach these characters about giving a twist? Obviously, art-wise, and trying to give and persuade some things when you draw these, but also kind of also respecting it in the same terms. How do you manage to do that?
Well, it's how do I manage to respect the character while bringing my own take to it? I think that's just by drawing it, because every artist has their own style. I've never tried to copy. I mean, well, that's wrong. Look, I've lied already. I once did a manga style Sandman series where I purposefully drew in a manga style, which was very difficult to do. It was very hard to maintain. So the weird thing about the way I draw is when I draw Sandman, it doesn't look like Wonder Woman. And when I draw Scary Godmother, it doesn't look like any of those things. And I think when I draw Sandman and Wonder Woman, they're closer together in a style versus what Scary Godmother is. But that's because the art school that I went to, it was called the American Academy of Art here in Chicago. And their job was to make you the best illustrator that you could be. And that meant they just wanted you to get a job. And that job could be, back in the day when there were newspapers, like people would illustrate things for newspaper stories or things for grocery stores or advertising. And you went in with your portfolio, and their goal as a school was to make sure you were continually employed. So you might have a portfolio that had black and white pen and ink illustrations, like what you're showing on the screen right now, or it might have some pastel drawings, or it might have some colored pencil drawings. You should be able to tell that advertising agent, if they're looking for someone to do fashion drawings, you're like, I can do that. And then you show them that part of your portfolio. Or you might be a person who has such a specific style that ad agencies look for you when they would actually like Alex Ross. Okay, so Alex Ross went to the same school that I did. I graduated before he started, and he was already amazing when he went there. And I think he got out of school and started working in advertising straight away, and then like jumped into comics, which is where he wanted to be. But his style was so recognizable and different than anything else. People wanted his style. So sometimes there are artists that become known for the style that they have. I'm in a weird position because I think I am known for a certain type of art, which would be watercolor art now. And but I didn't have a style like a Jim Lee style or a Frank Miller style or whatever. It seems like when I get a story, when an artist sends me or a writer sends me something, it changes a little based on what the story is. And I don't do that intentionally. I just start drawing what I think a good comic is. Like my main concern is telling a good story and making sure that it's really clear and it impacts the reader. And sometimes the art might be the same style as the comic I worked on before, but then other times it might get, like with Scary Godmother, a little angular, and then really kind of crazy and cartoony. Or I can paint realistic landscapes, but I don't tend to do that in comics. Mike Mignola once said that my style, my personal style, was I draw comics with paint. So it's like drawing, but with paint. So it's not painting like Alex Ross, and it's not painting like when I paint a landscape. It's doing like a comic book style, but with watercolor.
No, you know what? It's really interesting hearing this from you, because everybody, and I could say this, everybody that I know that read comic books, they don't ever take the time to appreciate the details. They never take a chance
Really?
to say, you know what, I like the images and I really appreciate what the artist did and how it interprets into the story. A lot of people kind of take that for granted. And being that in high school, I was in a graphics novel class, I had a professor or teacher, he taught us the value to appreciate these little details and all this. So it's always easy for people to say, oh, they probably just whip that up on a computer and stuff. But the fact that you're using watercolor, which is a very, very hard style of art, because in the art world, if you use watercolor, you can only do it, I think, like once, and then you gotta, if you mess up, you can't change it. Because I see, there's an artist, Itzhak Tarkai, he's known for his watercolors, and if he makes a mistake, he can't change that. That's permanent as watercolor.
Well,
So
yes, you can change it. You can figure out a way to salvage it, because there's a couple of like some, depending on what you do. I've had mistakes sometimes. It's really a weird thing. Sometimes I'll be drawing or I'll be painting something, and the brush will like fall out of my hand, roll, and it will inevitably, when I have like a staining dark green or blue, hit the paper, roll down my drawing table, because my drawing table isn't flat. And either I have to figure out, oh crap, you can sometimes take a wet brush that has clean water in it, and you can lift the color out. There are several factors that go along with that. If you have really good paper, so that's expensive paper. If you're using quality paint, And if it's not a super staining color, because there are certain colors like a phthalo blue or a phthalo green. These are things that will stain plastic and they'll immediately suck into the paper. But if you have other watercolors, they're meant to be manipulated a little bit. And if you can catch it before it dries, you can lift it up enough that you might be able to salvage it. If not, you have to figure out how to incorporate the mistake into the work. Or what I've had to do times before is cut that one panel out, put another patch in, because what you want people to see is the end product, which would be the comic or graphic novel. It's the same way with when people do pen and ink comics still, if they're still working analog. Like digital stuff, I always say like your undo button is an eraser. in my analog world, undo is either start over, which I know is a pain, but you've never seen me try and work digitally. I can tell you it takes me 75 times longer because I don't know how to use it as a tool yet. I'm trying. But if you grow up with just working on the computer, it does make certain things go easier. I've just pulled like 4 or 5 nights in a row. I've been staying up to like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. This morning was till 6 in the morning. I took a small nap and had to start over and like finish another page by the end of the day. I am very tired, but and I had to figure out a way to really get stuff done. And there were so many times where I was thinking, God, if I knew how to use Procreate better, this would be a whole layer, or I could fill this whole space up without having to worry about this part drying before this part was done, and I wouldn't accidentally paint over something because I would paint underneath the figure. And I was like, my God, I have to learn how to use that for certain things. But then I also have a nice stack of painted artwork that I feel really proud that I finished. So that's really satisfying. Back to the thing that you started with is like people don't take time to appreciate the art in comics. That blows my mind because I can tell you the people that make comics and the artists, most every artist I know puts, whether it's digital or not, because just because something's digital and you have the ability to fill in a black space easier, or some other tools that make stuff easier to like make a straight line or erase something or undo it. The creativity and the planning that's involved is over the top. So there are so many things that we plan. We plan like how your eye moves along the page, where we place things to create a composition in each panel, how each panel creates a bigger composition on the page, where the word balloons are placed so it doesn't distract from the art and becomes like a flowing part of the design that we make. And then how you build up to when they turn the page, because that's an emotional moment. So it's not just about like, here are some pictures that go along with what the guys are saying. It should be so intermingled that you become unaware that it takes so much time.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, Jill. And thank you for clearing up the watercolor thing, by the way. I appreciate that. But yeah, a lot of people from where I live, I could say, because most people are different. That's why we go to Comic-Con. We meet people that appreciate the art. But I have some questions in the live chat here that we can get to real quick. But I want to just show it. I want to show a quick display here. This is your work on Wonder Woman.
That is a commission that I probably took at New York Comic Con and then was able to finish it at home because it is really hard to do commissions at the convention, especially painted ones.
Especially with all the fans coming up and like, oh my God, it's Joe Thompson, I gotta get a photo. It's like I gotta draw and stuff. But no, this is some great artwork. You can see the amount of detail, not just in the face, but the hair. There's the streak.
I kill myself every time I draw her hair because I like the George Perez curly hair Wonder Woman. Obviously, I have curly hair. But then when I'm drawing it, I'm like, this takes too much time to render. Oh,
but every detail counts.
I know why everyone straightens their hair is because it's easier to do this than it is to do this.
What are you talking about? I got mix of wavy hair in here, and I never take time because I appreciate.
No, I appreciate your hair. Oh, that's a shame.
Well, I like the little details in this. I like the fact that here you see the little explosion. You've added little bits of paint to show the bullet and the whiz. These little things I appreciate. I'm the kind of guy that's like that. But I have a couple of questions here in the live chat. We'll pull up real quick. This is from Sneed Bubble Tech. And guys, I encourage you in the live chat, if you have any questions you want to ask Jill, because we're going to be moving along real soon. So if you have any questions, ask them away. The first
I
question.
ask any type of question.
So the first question he asks is, when you hit the proverbial wall, how do you reset? Where do you find the inspiration and rekindle the creative flame?
There are two ways that I do that. One is to get up and leave the situation. You know, like I think better if I ever have any kind of, like if I'm writing a comic story or I'm trying to figure out how to do something, it's best if I'm riding my bike or like doing some other type of activity. I like it never is by sitting down and sitting in front of a blank piece of paper or a computer screen. It's usually the ideas will come to me or I'll figure out a way to get past something when there's absolutely no way for me to write it down because I'll be on my bike or I'll be doing a Spartan race thing or some kind of weird workout, or I'll be baking and my hands will be covered in something. And so it's like, oh, that. I mean, you mentioned Magic Trixie earlier, I think, or maybe when we were texting each other. That idea came to me while I was doing a different job, and she was just really insistent in my brain. I also talked to other comic book professionals or other artists in other genres. Sometimes it's best for me to like, or just a friend, like to present the problem that I'm having and let a new set of eyes or ears hear it, because they haven't been agonizing over it all day. And sometimes they're able to just go, oh, well, why don't you do this? Or, oh, I think this looks like this. They might be able to help you solve something by just not running into the brick wall the same way. I think a lot of times when you agonize over either a creative problem or a lack of inspiration, you get yourself in that rut of worrying about it, and you can't. That's what keeps you from doing it more than anything else. There was one time I was working on the Little Endless Storybook, and I spent a couple of days messing up a page that I kept doing over and over again. It just wasn't coming out right. So I realized the longer I tried to fix it, the more late I was getting on the book. So I tore up the page that I was working on. And if you've done that, you just have to tear it up and get rid of it. And then I went to the next page that was in succession, finished the whole book, then came back to do the page that gave me a problem, and it came out perfectly the first time I did it. And it's one of my favorite things I've ever done, actually, that one that was the problem. Because I got it out of my head. I went through, I wasn't worried about it making me late anymore either. I finished all of the other pages and went back, and it was totally fine.
Well, sorry, forgot to hit the unmute button. I tend to do that most of the time. No, that's actually really nice to hear. A lot of people usually, when I don't know the artist industry, I can't speak from anybody except for you listening to you. It's definitely time consuming, and it probably makes you go mad, because if you do it a couple of times over and over, you're like, oh god damn, I gotta take a break. But
well, sometimes when you keep doing it over, you just like you kind of make the same mistakes over again. Or with painting, like if you mess up a painting, usually for me it's you work it too much and it just gets muddy looking, and you think you're trying to fix it, but the more you work at it, the worse you make it. So you have to just like leave it go.
Understandable. But another question from Steam Mobile Tech, same question person. He wants your opinion. Are you familiar with the villainous character Thanos from the MCU? I'm gonna assume you probably are. Everybody's seen in the comics and stuff. What are your thoughts on his character portrayal, design, and colors? And I'll add on to his question if you've seen the comic version in the comics and the movie adaptation.
I am a nerd from way back, so let me give you a little of my history. I've wanted to draw comics since I was like 5 years old. So I worked my way up from like Charlie Brown, Peanuts characters to Archie characters to Marvel characters. And I really, when I was growing up, like my goal was to work at Marvel Comics. I wanted to draw the X-Men, um, and I figured that's exactly what I was going to do. Still have all my rejection letters somewhere from my very wonderful rejection letters from Marvel Comics. Like I would send them like loose leaf notebook paper, ballpoint pen, crappy comics when I was a little kid, and I would get a form letter back that had a lovely like a Spider-Man on it and their old Marvel Comics address, and the whole rejection letter was written in a really positive Stan Lee voice. And it was like, hey, true believer, thanks so much for wanting to work for, in the mighty Marvel bullpen. But before you can be a part of the world's greatest comic making company, you have to learn how to do a few things first. And it's like, you have to learn how to draw the things that, Jolt and Johnny Romano do and Big John Buscema know how to do. And then they would list off things like the human figure, buildings, cars, every object you might see, animal, it's like they're telling you in the nicest way possible, hey kid, you don't know how to draw yet. But it's like, but once you do this, give it, perspective, design. They're telling you pretty much go to art school. And it's a form letter. So they just like would tick off the boxes of what you needed to work at. And like I kept getting a letter that had like everything marked off, like it's like you don't know how to draw anything yet. But all I could, like, I still remember my thought from getting that letter. It wasn't like, oh no, they don't want me. It was, okay, now I know what I have to do. Here's the list. It's like a recipe. Once I learn all these things, I'm in. And I made it my goal to like learn how to do all the things on that list, right? So so I wanted to do that. So I am very familiar with Thanos because I remember when the Death of Captain Marvel first came out as one of like the first graphic novels ever, and Thanos was a big, scary, weird-looking guy. I think I look at him in the comics now, and he looks weird to me. He doesn't look as threatening because some of the colors just look too bright. I think cosplay has really helped me understand what costumes look like they can work and what costumes look like they need to be tweaked so they can work again in real life. I think they did an amazing job in the Avengers movies to make that big old chin look like something that belongs exactly where it was, right?
The big old chin, like Doctor Who, the 11th Doctor.
Yeah, so I like, I don't know, it's like I think about those big characters like the Hulk and Thanos, and especially when you're drawing them, you're like, oh my god, I have to draw these two people together. This guy's talking, and then is it the Wasp is on the page too, and they all have to be seen, but like Hulk's way up there, and like regular people are down here, and then the Wasp is flitting around. It's like that becomes hard to do. So when you think about drawing something like that, it's interesting because the movies have made it look possible, and the comics had always felt possible. But I think the first time you saw some cosplay, it was like, I wonder if that would really work. And now I see such incredible cosplay. But people have movie grade special effect abilities themselves, and you see walking around a con, people in like I've seen you in amazing costume, and it's like I wish I could create something that cool. And then I was like, oh, well, that's their art form, and this is my art form.
Well, you did. We'll get into it in just a few moments. We'll get to that. But just a couple things before we get to the last question of this segment. Number one, Marvel made a mistake. I'm telling you right now, made a mistake. Should have had you on the team, but DC knew what they were doing. So props to DC.
I've done work for Marvel. I mean, like I've done work here and there, but I think like right now, I've been lucky. I've gotten to draw a lot of the characters that I've really loved. I get to do like every once in a while they'll call me up for like a little, like a bit or piece in a story, like a couple of pages here and there. I think I work best outside of continuity. It's like I don't like the way I work, the way I paint. I could not do a monthly book. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I have to the things that I do. I like to be allowed to take a certain character and play with it for a while and then put it back. So it's the exact same way everyone, you know, with Wonder Woman. My Wonder Woman was it was my take on her origin, but I put her back in the world where she could interact with superheroes. Like once she got there, I didn't change things super drastically. I would love to do that with some Marvel characters. You know, there are favorites that I've had, but everybody is so wed to a certain type of continuity that I'm not sure it would happen. So when I get invited to do things at Marvel, it's because a writer is working on something and they either think, oh, Jill would be great for like this type of thing, or I would love to like there was a Thor issue. I forget, it was like one of those big like 300 or 700. I forget, like maybe it was 700. Was there a Thor 700? But it was
I
there
I
were
don't
all
know.
these different little sub chapters of things with a bunch of different artists, and I think it was because a lot of interdimensional or different worldly things were happening,
Mm-hmm.
and based on the art that I do for Beasts of Burden, which is for Dark Horse, and that's Evan Dorkin, another Staten Islander, uh, writes that, and it's about dogs and a cat who are the supernatural protectors of their neighborhood. So it's all animals.
Huh.
And when I was doing that one, I think Jason Aaron, who was writing Thor at the time, they had a scene with when the frog Thor Throg,
Mm-hmm.
and because I do animals, they're like, "Oh, Jill could do that because she does animals really well." So I got to do uh, the Destroyer, and I think is Angela on there, maybe, and Throg, and then there was like She Hulk was fighting in a different section. So I got to do all of these scenes with stuff that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Bendis had me do like a page where there was a comic he did where every page had a different artist. And then I've been able to do a lot of like Secret Origin things where it's like a one-page encapsulation of certain characters. So I got to do my favorites, you know, like I got to do Phoenix and I got to do Kitty Pryde. You know, it was kind of like a whole history, and like all of my favorite moments were told in like panels behind, and
Wow,
that's been fun.
that's really cool. I feel like an idiot for saying that before, but I admit because you that's actually very excellent to hear.
Well,
So
it's like it's not like I've been on a regular book at Marvel, so you know I dabble here and there. Like I'm a freelancer, so anyone that'll give me work, I usually do it, and I like so many different types of things. That's a really great part about not being wed to one company is you know I just did like a really cool cover for this book called Mummy Girl, and that was
hmm
really fun. And then I get to do wrestling stuff for Mike Kingston for his Headlock comic because I like
hmm
wrestling. And then I get to do all these different genres. I get to do horror here and humor for myself, and um, superheroes when I need to.
no, absolutely. And I just wanted to go back to something you said way before. You said about cosplay, making things possible when you see them. It's funny because when I look at these guys at Comic Con, this was me at a young age. I was like, ugh, these guys wasting their time. But when I get older, and I'm like, wow, they really put a lot of time and effort. And when you see it on the screen, it turns into something possible. Because I remember in 2000, what was it, 2007 maybe, the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. At that time they were doing the Silver Surfer and Galactus. Now Galactus, he's just a dude in a giant purple suit with a purple helmet, and he's going around devouring planets. And in the
I still
movie,
want to see them do that.
they're going to. They have the rights now because of the acquisition of 20th Century Fox. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see it. But at the time, I think because it was 2007, you could make the argument that because of the colors and the way of like the design of then, you could say, oh, because I'm just gonna make a stupid joke here, but just imagine a big dude in a purple suit walking down the street, just devouring cities with like a pimp hat and just like killing everybody in left. So I can understand why they changed it to a cloud, but I was like, nah, man, you can't do a cloud. You gotta go and looking at what they've done with characters that were so ridiculous, but made them practical.
Oh no, they've been able to make Kirby characters. Like Jack Kirby stuff is pretty wild. and it works on the page. But when I've seen some cosplay stuff, and I was like, that's out there. But I think in the Thor Ragnarok with Taika Waititi, like added so many Kirby elements to the set design, and maybe that was probably the set designer, but really incorporated a lot of the stuff that is pretty much where all those characters started. And I would like to see some of that crazy Kirby stuff in the Fantastic Four world. And it would be super otherworldly to have creatures that had these giant headdresses. I mean, they probably will end up meaning something. I mean, we saw it work with Hela, right?
I think we have, yeah.
It really worked, and she was one of my favorites. And if you think about it, she's got a chandelier on her head, more or less. Like if you actually make that and you're wearing it, that's going to be impossible to move around in. But
it's possible. You're right.
Yeah, has made it super possible, and it also looked really cool too. It didn't look ridiculous.
Yeah, so I'm all for whenever they can make a spin on something that doesn't think that could work but can work. Because when I think of Galactus and I think of what they can do, I think they can incorporate his design, like make it a darker purple, make him a little more shadowy, kind of like a more, how would I say it? It's kind of hard to explain. I don't want to focus too heavily because we got to keep going. I got one more question here, and then we're moving right on to the next thing.
Sure.
I think, but when I look at comic creations from the pages to the big screen, the one that comes to my mind, the first thing that pops into my head is Spider-Man from 2002, Sam Raimi. For me anyway, because when I was growing up, the first two movies that I ever saw was Spider-Man and the Hulk, 2003 Hulk. And trust me, I like the Hulk. Everybody hates it, but I think it's all right.
Which one was that?
Ang Lee, 2003 with Eric Bana.
Yeah.
It was a mixed bag, but I think of, how they portrayed the characters, like Sam Raimi versus the Hulk, obviously two different properties. One was a cash grab. One was more just kind of setting the tone, like Bryan Singer's X-Men. When Bryan Singer's X-Men came out, that set the path. And then Sam Raimi stepped up, was like, with respect to source material, take a serious story. Because back then, comic book stories being adapted to live action weren't taken as seriously. The one that tried to be was Blade. Blade worked. The first movie did anyway, but then after
Blade was the first superhero movie.
Blade worked, but then after the sequel, I believe people started just going off the train. Spawn tried, but we all know how that turned out. Now we're getting a reboot, hoping that's good. But when I think of great adaptations, I think of Sam Raimi because of his Spider-Man trilogy.
Spider-Man trilogy.
Because not only was he able to take the characters that were so goofy and silly at first in the comics and give them a real world perspective, like putting the possibility, and especially in a time when CGI and things like that were still evolving. I think it was great that he was able to do that with Spider-Man. And then when you look at Hulk, obviously it's always impossible to do a giant green dude. Obviously Marvel's, well, they had it, then they did Professor Hulk, and that kind of just, for me, killed it. But taking the source from the original Jack Kirby and Stan Lee comics from I think it was 62, they were able to portray the Hulk as close, maybe too green, a little too purple, but it was faithful at best. So those are what come to my mind. And the last question, I'm so sorry, Jill, and then we're going to move right on to what you are well known for. I've been waiting for this. Speeding up.
Comics.
Well, of course, I don't want you to think I'm taking up all the spotlight here. I don't want you to think, I want you in and out. I definitely want you to stay.
You've done this before?
Of course.
That's what makes it interesting.
Well, last question, at least for this era subject, and we're moving right next to it because I want to spend a lot of time on the next one, is where do you place Stan Lee on the pantheon of comic greats?
Without Jack Kirby, there would be no Stan Lee. Without Stan Lee, there would be no Jack Kirby. But Jack Kirby doesn't get enough credit.
Looks like somebody knows you. Maverick is recognized. Maverick jumped right out. Damn! We got a fan in the house. Maverick, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on. Well, go ahead. I apologize.
I think someone just lifted part of that from my Wikipedia.
I'm gonna probably assume, but Maverick, if you are serious, I'll take it. I hope. Fingers crossed. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I mean Stan Lee. I've read that book, that that great big biography about Marvel Comics. It was kind of like a dishy expose about stuff that was going on behind the scenes. I think they might be making it into some kind of a mini series somewhere. Stan Lee, I mean, I feel like Stan Lee's best stuff happened when he was collaborating with Jack Kirby, obviously, because you would hear all the stories. It's like he had a vision, he had stuff that he wanted to do, but then there was a time when he would come in and go like, "Oh, we're 12 pages short. Jack, I need some science fiction story this weekend." And Jack Kirby would go home and like make up the story, bang out a bunch of pages, and then put them on Stan's desk on Monday morning, and he would just like put the dialogue in their mouth. He would say, "Oh, this is this guy, and this guy does this," and then he would know what happens, and then it was kind of all laid out there. So I think that they're like totally entrenched. They're enmeshed together, and we wouldn't have the stuff we have now if both of those guys didn't smash together.
Agreed. 100% agreed. I think of them as partners that will always go along together. People sleep on Jack Kirby, but he's just as linked as Stan Lee, and I look at that like Kobe and Shaq.
That's the thing, like I had wished that Jack Kirby had lived long enough to be able to benefit from his creations the way that Stan Lee did,
Yes, and
totally deserved. He like from a comic book artist standpoint, like when I was little, I didn't like Jack Kirby art. It was too weird to me. I liked art that looked what I considered more realistic. Then when I got older and I was in art school, then I started really understanding like the power and the impact of Jack Kirby art. So by the time I finally I got to meet him when I first was starting out, like before I was even working at at comic companies, but I was doing small works at independent places, and I was still in art school. So I got to meet him when I was like your age, and it was like a great great grandpa who had all of these grandkids, and it was everybody in comics, because without what he did, none of us would be there. None of us would be doing what we really wanted to do. And I got to meet him twice, and he was wonderful and sweet each time I met him. And I feel like he's part of my personal history, even though he's not related to me in any way.
Hey, listen, we all have moments in our lives where we share a moment. Like I said, I think of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee as like the Kobe and Shaq of the comic industry. It was never Kobe or Shaq. It was both Kobe and Shaq, or you could say Shaq and Kobe. You could go any way you want, but they were always intertwined in history. Hashtag three-peat. But I'm a Miami fan, so that doesn't involve me in Lakers. But yes, you could say that because you met the man. You obviously had an influence on you, and he played a crucial part of you obviously evolving as an artist and growing in the past. He was like kind of, I would say, maybe your inspiration to an extent as you got older. You said you didn't like his stuff in the beginning, but then as you went along, you appreciate it.
Well, I mean, like I've had a list of artists that I love and that I still love, but then there are other artists that I had to come to appreciate, and he was one of them. But it was at the time when when I was starting out, there weren't a lot of girls who liked comics. I knew no women who liked comics when I was a girl. And when I said I wanted to be a comic book artist, I think one of the reasons that I actually got people to look at my portfolios, because I would go to a convention and I would be one of like 4 girls at a convention, and maybe the only one that wanted to draw. So I think a lot of times there would be editors or I got to meet artists. They would remember me because I was the only girl. And show them my art. They gave me comments on it. They gave me critiques, and I would go back and fix stuff. But when I got good enough, I think it helped, because I'm pretty positive that some people are like, "Oh, did you see that girl artist?" And an editor would say, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Oh, the girl who wants to draw comics." "Oh, that girl," because I was the only one there. It's like, yes, the one who draws. "Oh, yes, I see." It's like, so it was easy to remember me because I was the only one who fit that criteria. So when I started to really get into comics and get into comic art, and wanting to draw comics and study comic artists, like I wanted to be able to have the same nerd cred that all my other male counterparts had, where I could sit down and have lunch with them and we could talk about who inked who best, and like who knew like what obscure French artist, and did you ever see this comic from this type of thing, and just like know all my old comic book artist greats. And now there's so many comic book artists and also so many different platforms upon which you can read comics. So there are thousands of people out there whose work is probably amazing, but I've never had a chance to see it because it might be just on the web, or they might be working on a comic for a company I haven't seen. And I think that it might be a lot harder to get noticed if you're trying to get hired by somebody, just because there's so many other people wanting to do the same thing than when I was starting. So
Yeah, the industry, in my opinion, has come a long way since then. Nowadays, a lot more women artists, they have evolved. They've become some of the most well-known, recognized artists in the genre, just like yourself. You are well-known, well-respected in the industry, and to my mind, I would consider you one of the pioneers because you have left a legacy, and we're about to talk about it in just a second. So I look at you as kind of one of the pioneers because as the industry was going, more and more people were starting to respect you, and you became, the stepping stone. And it wasn't until obviously you made it into possibly one of the best creations you have, and we'll talk about it in a sec. But you, to my mind, when you tell me that story, I would think of you as one of the stepping stones and one of the people that helped make it possible for women to appreciate and love the comic. It shouldn't feel out of place because I know now more women that actually enjoy reading comics or graphic novels. They enjoy picking up books that have manga. There are more women. There's a girl I went to high school. She defriended me. I don't know what I did for her to do that to me. I don't know what I did. Sorry, Emma. I'm not afraid to say her name either. But I will say this. Phenomenal artist, phenomenal skills. And she, to me, even if we're not friends anymore, she blocked me, do whatever you want. I respect the hell out of her for her skills, for the amount of time that she spent in her work. And I think she's great. She's just as great. So I would consider you one of the stepping stones, one of the guidance to get to that point, if that's safe to say.
I hope that I've been able to, I've been I don't even know how to phrase this. I hope that just by being a comic book artist and being out there visibly, if there were girls who were interested in comics, they might have seen me and said, "Oh, I can do that." Because when I first wanted to draw comics, I never thought that there would be a bias against women drawing them, or there would be a problem. Just because I didn't see any or know any didn't mean that I couldn't do it. I just figured that I was cooler than everybody else in the fact that it was like I knew comics were so cool and fun, and the fact that these other girls or like everybody else that I knew wasn't into it, I was like, well, that's fine because I also like D&D and none of them like that either. So I just I found a bunch of people who liked the same type of thing that I did. It made me feel comfortable to work in it, and I had absolutely no plan B. I just like I said, I had my Marvel Comics list of things I needed to know how to draw, and then I met other artists. I would go to conventions and show them my art, and some local Chicago artists. Bill Reinhold, he's done work for Marvel. I think it was Earth X that he worked on, but he's done work for a lot of other companies. He would be so nice, and he would look at my portfolio, and he would give me incredibly detailed notes. He would tell me all the things that were wrong with my art, and before you think that might sound harsh, he never did it in a way that sounded bad. He just did it in a way that that made me want to, like, he would tell me, oh yeah, I used to do this all the time. Sometimes when you're getting really into it and trying to figure out how to draw a hand, you don't realize that it's out of proportion with the rest of the body until you stand back because you've been really trying to make it good, and then you don't realize you made it too big or something. And then I would notice it every place I had done it. So when he pointed out a mistake to me, I would always remember that and fix it. And then now I foist those same types of mistakes back. When I had students, I was telling them, everything that Bill would point out on me would be the first thing I would point out on their art. But he encouraged me, and these other guys encouraged me to go to art school. So I went to the American Academy of Art, and while I was going there, I kept submitting stuff to comic book companies to get work, and I did. So while I was still in art school, I got some of my very first comic book jobs, and then when I worked my way up, and when I finally got to work on Sandman was when I started to get a lot of notoriety, because that book was incredibly popular. It's probably the most popular thing I've ever worked on, and suddenly people knew my name and my art. And then I also know that there was a huge female readership for Sandman, so that might just have made women aware of, here's a comic that I like that, is not superheroes, it's not Archie or whatever. And there's a woman working on this, and then there are other women that have worked on it, like Colleen Duran, and it may have made them realize, I love these comics and I want to do it too. And there's a woman I can look at and say, there's one. At least, I know that there are other women like me who like comics.
Of course. And like you said, Sandman was one of the most popular ones. And like I said at the beginning of this, you are well known. Your resume speaks for itself, and I've told everybody in here, so now you know who Jill is. To people watching this, you now know. But now we get to the part, and I think you know where we're going with this.
Yep,
You've mentioned,
I'm
pretty sure you've heard this many times. I'm pretty sure everybody says this. They don't even talk about, or maybe I'm just saying, but they don't even talk about DC. They don't even talk about anything else. The one thing that everybody jumps on, and it's literally one of the best things you possibly have created, and it's this character, Scary Godmother.
It's my favorite thing that I've created. Oh wait, let me go get this guy.
Go ahead. So guys, if you don't know, I'll do it while Jill is this is the character that everyone is well known. Bugaboo.
Yeah.
So guys,
I have more made.
Awesome. I want to get all into it. This is where we're going to spend the most of our show because it's Halloween, and what perfect character to talk about for Halloween than Scary Godmother. Now, guys, for the older community watching this,
we get something else. Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Keep talking.
To the older community that doesn't know about Scary Godmother, I'm about to educate you. Yes, the millennial is going to educate you, or of course Gen Z. But
Gen Z.
Man, why wasn't I a millennial? Regardless,
you're Gen Z, dude.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me. Don't remind me, Jill. But if you guys don't know,
the world, man.
If you don't know, now you're going to find out, guys. So this is the character, the one that Jill is most known for. You could see her at Comic-Con booths, everybody, crossplay, everything. This character right here, Scary Godmother. So for the older guys, take a seat back. I'm about to educate. So let's start from the beginning, Jill. I'm going to, tell me if the date is right. 1997. 3 years before. Am I off?
That's when Scary Godmother came out.
Yep, so let's start there. 1997. The first Scary Godmother book came out. Yes. I wasn't even in the picture yet. It was 3 years before I was born, so I had to do some research for this. I only know up to what we're going to go to soon. We'll get to that. But and I didn't look this up on Wikipedia, so never using them as a source. But 1997, the first Scary Godmother book came out. Now, you have done this in several ways. You've done books, you've done comics, and all of them are unique in their own styles. I'm going to show some examples. Let's pull up here. But basically, the character of Scary Godmother is not only one of your most recognized pieces, but it's considered by many to be a staple of creativity in terms of the Halloween season, from the characters of Bugaboo and Penny with the skeleton and Hannah and all these characters that you have created, like Max, Orson. It's hard to put into words the significance of how important your creation of Scary Godmother is. A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, what's Scary Godmother?" Well, there's a fan base, and I'll tell you, every single year I went to Comic-Con, 2 years in a row, back to back, Jill. Those panels, those those people were lined up ready, and they know. So 97, the book comes out, it's a hit. I'm gonna assume it was a hit because then in 98 and 99, you won an award for the books. I think you
Yes.
yep, you won a few awards for Scary Godmother in 2000 as well. And
Mhm.
it was a hit with children and also young adults. You've stated on many records that Scary Godmother is kind of like your godmother. It's like a friendly kind. You've said it, it's been quoted. Everybody has that quote out there. So pretty much everything I'm saying is not new. But let's flash forward now to 2003, going into
Okay.
2004. Now I'm in the picture. This is where I come in.
Okay.
So the book is a hit. People love the creation of Scary Godmother, and Maverick is one of them. Now comes 2003. I don't know, maybe 2002. I don't know. I don't know the behind the scenes, but I know from 2003, that was when you probably got the call. You got the call in 2003. They want to adapt Scary Godmother as a television special. And for those of you that don't know the Halloween special, the image is here. I'm going to pull it up. And quickly, before I go on, I just want to say, if y'all want to know how much I love these specials, I went digging in my old personal collection and found the DVD that I bought at Target as a kid. That's how much I love it. There,
Aw.
I'm gonna pull up my fandom. This is the actual DVD of The Revenge of Jimmy, and inside, because I lost the first cover, is the original first ever Scary Godmother Halloween Spooktacular with the
Do
paper
you
still
have anything
intact.
to play it on?
Hey, listen, DVDs are like a common thing nowadays. I got streaming medias that can make me watch them for free, but and also if you really want to know how obsessed I was, Jill, look at the scratch marks on the DVDs. That's how many times I played this thing. I don't know if you could see it, but if you could see the ring around the DVD, that's how many times this thing was in my DVD player.
Oh, I take your word for it. Well,
So,
I'm gonna tell you. Whoops. Um, before it was a TV show, it was a play.
yes, the play, I
We did
saw
a
that.
play here in Chicago. What happened was I had done Scary Godmother books, and before I did Scary Godmother, and then before I did The Revenge of Jimmy, right about that time, Scary Godmother was optioned. So it was optioned for television by a company called Mainframe. And when you get optioned, what happens is you sell a lot of your rights, like you loan them, you lease them out for a specific time, because what they're trying to do is like they have the right to make something with your show or with your idea, but they don't always make anything, right?
And
They're
when
looking
you
for someone to finance it.
and when you say this play, are we talking about this play?
That play, that's right.
I don't can you hear it? I don't know if you can
I
hear it.
can't personally, but
Well, regardless, YouTube will copyright strike me if I play the audio. So it seems like
oh no,
somebody
'cause
took
I
your.
put that up there. That's my YouTube account.
That's yours. So this is the play. Now this came out in 2001, I
I
believe.
still
This
have this
was
ad. Yeah, so 2001, and it actually, our first show was September 13th, 2001. So it was like just a couple of days after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, do we still go on? Do we put this play on? And people were like, my God, yes, please, we need some kind of distraction. And then we did 26 performances, and it was incredibly successul.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole time, like Scary Godmother had been optioned for like a few years before that, like around like 98 was the first time it got optioned. And they, the Mainframe, you know, like me and the director of this children's play, we adapt, like we both adapted it together. We sent it to the company, and we're like, here, you should just make this, because we made a play, and everyone loves it, and it's like an hour, so you should just make like a pilot. And they actually ended up doing that, and they hired Heath and I. He was the director of the play, and myself, to adapt our play to make a screenplay of it. And then that screenplay became the first Scary Godmother TV special, which we completely made. And then that one got shopped around. Cartoon Network really liked it. They licensed it up with the company for a certain period of time and put it on, and it was super successful. So successful that by Halloween of the first year it was on television, they wanted another one. So they asked for the adaptation of Revenge of Jimmy straight away.
Well, that's where I was going to get to, because I'm going to tell you right now, I watched that play, Jill. I mean, obviously from what I saw, and this is probably going to make you get mad, but it definitely needed a different adaptation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, I love that play.
I understand. I understand. I understand. It was for a good cause, and it was the first adaptation of Scary Godmother from the book. But man,
I have to say, well, here's the thing: the video that you saw, the time that they had the video come in to adapt it. One, it was the only performance I wasn't at. Like, I was away at a convention that weekend, and they were taping. They had a videographer come in and tape it. So I wasn't there to micromanage that, because if I had micromanaged it, it would have been a much better job of videoing it. I feel like, we had such great musical numbers. And we also had, the problem there was we had an understudy for Hannah. So my preferred Hannah of our actresses was not available that weekend. So I feel like you didn't see the best Hannah. I love everything about it, and I still have the Bugaboo costume.
I'll take your word for it. I will not say it's a terrible play, because
I feel like, personally, based on the thing that I made, I love the books and comics that I made. I really liked the play that we did. I would love to do another one. I would love to do a bigger, better one. Like, now I want to do like a Broadway style one, like something super big.
Well, COVID's around the going to limit us.
I have a lot of time to think about it then.
Of course.
And then we took that and built upon it, and we had to cut out 15 minutes because it was an hour play, and TV hour is only 47 minutes.
Yes.
So like 13 minutes to make it for the TV show. And working on that TV show was amazing. The director, Zeke Norton, and I, it's like we went to town together as far as like making it our own thing, because I was the client that we had to approve it, because they made the pilot. But the animation company made the pilot by themselves. They didn't have a buyer at that point, so they didn't have to worry about a bunch of executives telling you what they thought it should be about. What we did was we made what we thought it should be, which was,
faithful and
my thing. And,
absolutely.
And then, and I feel like we were justified in the fact that when Cartoon Network played it, it was really, really successful. And it played every Halloween for 10 years.
I'm going to get to that, how successful this was. But I'll tell you as a kid. But yes, as you said, that Cartoon Network picked up on it, and that's where this cartoon comes in. Now, this cartoon was made in 2003. It was Scary Godmother Halloween Spooktacular. Now, for copyright reasons, I can't play the clip. Last time I did that, I got copyright striked, and UFC took my video down.
So sorry.
Wait, what?
It's the only thing that's not streaming somewhere. It's so weird.
I don't know. If I play the clip and I get striked, they gonna come after me. I don't know who.
I'm saying thank you for not doing that. It would be interesting because can't you do it for reviewing purposes or something? You
can do it for reviewing purposes. But the only thing is that I think, you know what? I'm taking a risk. Let's play the clip. Damn it. Let's play the clip. I don't care. I don't care, anybody.
Give you permission.
Yeah, exactly. The creator has given me permission. No needed. So yes, the cartoon comes out. Scary Godmother is a thing, and originally the cartoon came out in 2003, but it wasn't picked up until 2004. Now, by that time, I'm in the picture. Now, I'm alive. I'm trick-or-treating. And let me tell you something, Jill. When that cartoon came out, I don't know if it was on October 31st or whenever it came out, but that cartoon came out. As a kid, I will tell you a story. At 4 years old, and I still remember it. My mom has videotape of it. I had just finished trick-or-treating, and I told you the story at Comic-Con. So it's the same story that I'm going to tell you that I told you 2 years ago at Comic-Con. We had just came home from trick-or-treating. It was a long night, and we had came back, and it just so happened that Scary Godmother was playing on the TV. So when Scary Godmother was playing on the TV, I took all my candy. My cousin checked it. I was sitting there eating it, and I'm like, this is some awesome stuff. Now, be it this was 2004, the second one didn't come out, but let me tell you something, Jill. From a Gen, I can't believe I'm not a millennial, but from a Gen Z's perspective of somebody who knows this cartoon, who has watched it consistently for when it aired on Cartoon Network, every year it came on. I can tell you, the kids in school were talking about it. I was talking about it. My cousins were talking
Aw.
about it. Everybody. And listen, I may be a smaller group. I may be in the smaller percentage, but this cartoon, Jill, was the bomb. It was not only the entitlement of everything you wanted in Halloween, it was the
Aw.
entitlement of basically, in my opinion, the best screen adaptation of a comic source to a cartoon, because most of these creators do not have the chance to have full control, or at least a
This is
majority
very
of.
true. I mean, I think that you're making a great argument for the fact that the people who made the thing up in the first place should be heavily involved with making it in a different medium.
Yeah, and if you
Because
look at
they'll keep it true to what it is.
and if you look at some of these artworks, not a lot of these creators have had a chance. Now, I don't know how long I'm supposed to keep this on. I feel like YouTube's gonna kill me any
Probably,
second.
probably cut it.
Yeah, we'll cut it right there. But we'll go back to it a little bit. But yeah, a lot of these creators do not get the chance to get a chance to have a say in their property. Spawn. But in all seriousness, your creation, Scary Godmother, when it came to the screen, nobody realized how big it was going to be. At least from my end, from my friends and stuff. Nobody had no idea this was going to be a staple for the holiday, and it was a staple. Like you said, it played for 10 years straight. We'll get to what happened later on, but yes, as you can imagine, it was a big hit. It was a success. The creations were amazing. At the time, the effects were amazing because this was
Yeah,
2003.
I would love the animation. We need to tweak. We need
Well,
to
of
tweak the
course,
animation.
it was 2003. I give it a pass. But of course, with all that success, all that, everything that happened, hey, listen, after that came the sequel, 2005 Scary Godmother, The Revenge of Jimmy. Now, this was
Yep,
the sequel. Now, obviously, the effects were definitely a little bit better this time around. They definitely had a much better renderation.
yep.
The story was just as good. And again, it was another hit. This was another solid hit. Now, I don't know what they've told you. I don't know what
Oh
anyone
no,
says.
I knew. I mean, we knew it was a hit because it was. It had the numbers, it had the ratings, and then they would play both of them. They
Back
would
to
play them
back.
back to back.
And that's what I was going to say is on every Halloween. I don't know if you remember, but in 2007, I remember it was at a specific time for the last 3 years. It would be from 8 to 9, and then 9 to 10. 2 hours of Scary Godmother, and then they would have a weekend. They advertise it, so it was a big hit. This cartoon. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on the cartoon, as I know the book is the real source. But being that I have more of a connection with the cartoon, and you did have a majority of control, obviously you were the writer for the cartoon as well. You worked on the script.
Well, I co-wrote the script. I worked I mean, I did storyboards. I did a bunch of background paintings. I did all the animation art for the treat section. I had weekly conferences with the director to take notes on everything that had been done. I drew things for it. I went to Vancouver a bunch of times. I was there for the voice. Thanks, Maverick. I was there for the voice record. I got to pick voices. I was very heavily involved in every step of the way. So
There you go. So you, to me, feel like the right person to talk to, because we're going to talk a lot about Scary Godmother. I want to spend the rest of this show talking about it, and then we'll get to Magic Tricity and all that. But this is where my fandom comes out, because I have been waiting to ask you for so long. And this is my chance to finally do it. And I'm going to watch this video on repeat, because this is like a dream come true. Cha-ching! But all right, let's calm down now. All right, so let me ask you now. The first cartoon that came out in 2003, and obviously again picked up by Cartoon Network. This was at a time where Cartoon Network was going to war, at least from what I remember, the golden age of competition, where Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network were going at each other. If you remember, there was a commercial where literally Cartoon Network hijacked Nickelodeon. I don't know who signed off on it, but there was a commercial of Ed, Edd n Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Laboratory, and it was like war. So Cartoon Network was pretty much trying to get as much original content. I don't know if you knew this, but the commercial is out. It's on the internet. They found it out.
Wrestling wars.
What happened?
It sounds like the wrestling wars between WWE and
Oh, don't worry.
WCW.
AEW is coming for that crown now. But
Oh yeah.
But in all seriousness, though, this was when they were trying to stack up on some things, and Scary Godmother was the biggest hit for them. Not only did it have a staple for the holiday, not only was it something highly recognized, but it was something that they had that Nickelodeon just didn't have. And so I want to ask you.
Interesting thing is, did you might have been there at the convention? What I was noticing at New York Comic Con or most any other con. Wait, I have to fix Mr. Pettibone here. Sit. He won't sit right. There you go. And I also don't want to set her on fire by accident. So, the thing I would notice at the conventions would be there'd be a group of maybe like 5 people your age or a little older. So maybe they would be millennials.
Gen Z, as you say. Don't remind me.
Gen Z? What's wrong with Gen Z?
Have you seen my generation? We couldn't even wrap our way out of a pastry bag.
That's not true. I see you. I see you like protesting injustice and stuff like that. And
that's the other version. I'm talking about the ones I grew up with, the ones where I live, and there's no hope for them.
Okay. But so I'd be at my table and I have my banner up, and every once in a while, sometimes I would have my laptop. I had to figure out how to get like more high tech little setup at my table, but I'd have my banner up with Scary Godmother on it, and people would walk by, and there'd be like a group of like 5 kids or young adults, and like 2 out of, or either 3 or 2 out of the 5 would be like freaking out in a way like, oh my god, I remember that. Oh, that was my childhood. And my friend who worked my booth with me started to keep track of how many times they heard that was my childhood, and she would give me a daily tally of what that was, which was kind of funny. And but then the other 3 would be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that Scary Godmother, don't you know Scary Godmother? And the other people would be like, no, what is it? And we figured out because when I grew up, there was, 4 channels, and you ended up watching whatever your dad watched, or, whatever your dad told you that the whole family was going to watch at night. But y'all have grown up with, some people only watched Cartoon Network, and some people only watched Nickelodeon, and some people only watched the Disney Channel. So like there were whole worlds of content that people never saw before. So it was always a split group when there was a bigger group of people, where some people would react. There'd be like other people like, dude, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to show you. And it's like, and I said, it's on YouTube right now, so you can show them. Most of the time, like the people that had seen it on TV never knew that there were books of it. So that way I would always be say, well, you've only seen 2 of the stories. This book has like nearly 500 pages of material in it. So you'll get more Scary Godmother.
Of course, and I was one of those people, because my uncle was there. He'll tell you, he'd be like, "Yeah, Mike, he jumped. He's like, holy crap, was that scary?" Like when I saw that, I'm like, no way. That was my first thing. So I'm like, no way. So let me get to my question. So question number 1 about the cartoons. I want to know, first off, did they offer you a part in the cartoon? Did they like offer you a cameo or something? Or did like your artwork and things like that was kind of your way of being in the cartoon? Was there any way for them to make you in, like as a character or something? Were you ever offered?
I did a voice, but like I'm it was a SAG. You had to be in the Actors Guild to, have a real part.
Oh.
But I did a tiny voice, in one of them.
Well, I don't remember. I tried listening.
Right.
I don't because
I'm not credited, and it was just for fun, and I was really excited to do it.
No, it's good when you.
Fun fact: in Revenge of Jimmy, the kid that played Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the TV show Vikings?
Yep.
Okay, Alexander Ludwig, the main Viking, That's Jimmy.
I know. I was gonna say because I looked his profile up. I looked at all of these, and I'm gonna tell you the cast that you guys had for that cartoon was really good, especially two of them in particular, which we'll get to in a sec. But my next question is actually about Jimmy. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you've been asked this. I'm pretty sure you've been asked this, but why does Jimmy sound different from Halloween Spooktacular to The Revenge of Jimmy? Can you explain to me why did his voice go from a deep middle-aged kind of teenage kid and then to The Revenge of Jimmy he sounded more childlike, more of like a child?
There were two different voice actors.
But how come they didn't keep like the similarity? Because whenever people watch those cartoons, they think that The Revenge of Jimmy came before because they go off of his voice. So for example,
Well, it's because the actor that okay with voice acting talent they had they had a voice cast. Like I also got final say over which voice I liked, but they narrowed things down to certain actors, right? So for the first one, they had XYZ actors that could do it, and they were all Toronto based because the first show was funded in part by a grant from like I think mostly they used all local talent, right? So
mhm.
Canadian talent. And when we never knew that we were going to be doing a second one when we did the first one, and when the second one came around, not everybody was available. So we used this people like the adults that were the voices. They came back, obviously did the voices, but kids moved on or moved, and we had I think our Hannah may have been the same, but we needed another Bert and we needed another Orson and we needed another Jimmy, so we had to recast. And it's like I would just listen to the voices, like they would send me tapes of the kids reading because I'm in Chicago and they're in Vancouver, and I would close my eyes and listen really intently, and what sounded like the most sound I wanted to get out of that character would be the one I chose. Like I never looked at anybody's headshot if a headshot was available, and it was only upon going to Vancouver for the voice record of that it was really remarkable because Alexander looked like Jimmy. He was like blonde, he had a little spiky hair,
Back then, yeah.
cute little nose and stuff like that. He still looks like Jimmy if Jimmy was like a super hot dude.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna nitpick it because, like I said, I'm a fan, so I'm not care. But I'm just saying, like when we watch
That's
the
how it
cartoons,
works, it's like
yeah, it's understandable.
or they don't track the people down, or it's easy to just you recast.
No, of course.
And I'm glad
But
we did because he's such a good Jimmy.
yeah, he's a great actor. He's definitely come a long way, like you said. He's got a good
It
resume
was
for himself. He
first
was in The
job.
Hunger Game, I believe. He was in Bad Boys for Life because I remember seeing somebody. He
He's
did The
in
Hunger Games.
he was in Hunger Games. He was Kato, and I know that because my nieces who were younger teens when they went to see that, they obviously thought he was super cute, and they went on his IMDb, and then I got a bunch of like all caps texts. Angel, why didn't you tell us that? So you knew Alexander Ludwig, and I'm like, who? I was like, why does that voice sound familiar? And they're like, oh, that's Jimmy from Scary Godmother. And then I'm thinking, oh yeah, like, and I'm still thinking he's 10 years old kid, right? Because that's what I'm picturing. I was like, oh, I remember that kid. He was blonde. I remember doing this to his head, and like we got special pizza, like, and his mom was really nice. She was there. His mom was Charlene, I think your name was, and uh, and then so I was like, oh, he must have been in a movie they like. I'm thinking he's like 13 or 14. I forgot how much time had passed, and then I look him up, and like the first thing that comes up is like some shirtless picture of him. I was like, whoa.
Oh my. Well,
I was
they
like,
all go
oh,
through.
I was like, I'm so proud of him. This is great. He's like an international heartthrob.
Hey, he's doing great for himself. Props off to my man.
I did
But
see him at a convention, not this spring, obviously, but last spring in Sweden, of all places. We happened to be at the same comic convention, and I was like, "Get out! Oh my god, I have to go! I have to go meet him and say hi." And we took pictures together, and it was really, really cute. He was like, "Oh my god, that was my very first job." So,
well, it's
so then,
good.
of course, I sent all those pictures to my nieces, like, haha, girls, look who I'm standing with.
Well, the next question obviously is now the big guys in the cartoon. Scott
Yep.
McNeil and
Yep.
Gary Chalk. Those two, listen, Gary Chalk, I love that man. I love everything he does. I remember him in Freddy vs. Jason as the sheriff. Obviously, I was 5 years old when I saw that, but he did a lot of things.
You were 5. See, why did you get to watch that when you were 5 years old?
You know what it is? I had cousins that tortured me on a daily basis that would, and I had to adapt. I basically had to adapt to the horror stuff so they couldn't scare me. So thank God I did, because I watched horror at a young age. I loved horror. But then Scott McNeil, who I adore in X-Men Evolution, Beast Wars. So he, to me, is another one of the great, voice actors. So when you
incredible. I mean, we were so like when they said they were bringing those guys in, obviously, they hadn't done all of the things that they had done by this point. But I mean, I think Scott was called the man of 1,000 voices.
Yeah, Scott was considered, absolutely.
Yeah, and
but
actually, both of them had seen the play. They watched the play because the voices of the guys from the play I really liked. I liked our Mr. Pettibone. I liked Bugaboo. I liked him to have pretty much use a Chicago guy accent, and it's a hard one to explain. But the guy Patrick that was in the costume for our play, I liked his voice, his regular voice. So I had him listen to that, and it was really, really crazy to give them direction, as it were. Telling him what I wanted on Bugaboo, and he would like throw a couple of voices out. One was like real New Yorky, and I was like, no, I'm not from New York. So I was like, he's got more Midwestern, he's Chicago-y, but he can be your basic like blue collar dude. And he did that, and then he would switch to Harry right away.
Oh, everybody loves Harry.
I gave him a couple of notes on what that was supposed to be like, because I could reference other things that I had used for the other actors to reference, and the type of attitude that he had. But to see them like have the converse, like it would be interesting because you would close your eyes while you were there. If you watched, it was weird because they have the mics in front of them, and they would do the thing, and sometimes they would be talking to themselves, back and forth, because they would be doing the two characters that were having the conversation. But if I would close my eyes, I could see the characters doing it. But if I would just watch, it was weird because it didn't sound exactly the same if I was watching than not watching, because one time he would sound like this, and then another time he would sound like a guy that was doing a voice. So it's the same way I can't watch disc jockeys, or people that do impressions. I'd rather listen to them. I can't watch them do it because it doesn't sound accurate if I can see their face. But if I don't see their face, I'll totally think you're whoever you're supposed to be.
No, well, they perform phenomenal. I don't know why, but I used to feel so bad for Harry in the cartoon because I'm like, look, he's just why you want candy. Come on now, like we all want a piece of candy. But there was one thing I always hated in the cartoon. Now, as a kid, I used to hate this. I hated this girl. I understand because like. She, for crying out loud, almost destroyed the Fright Night by literally destroying. Literally, look at that, Jake. She was responsible for almost killing Scary Godmother right there. And as a kid, I hated it. I was like, just somebody get some duct tape, bam, put it on her fast before she got the word out.
I think, like, if I remember correctly, Katie was figuring out. Oh no, I guess because she was always saying we can't have Halloween, we can't have Halloween. So like her lack of belief was the thing that would kick it over the edge.
No, yeah. But I remember as a kid, I'm like, somebody get some duct tape. Boom. No, don't say it. But
like, hey, you shut up.
But yeah, so my next well, I've been really not asking questions, but my next thing about the cartoon is the difference between the two of them. Now, obviously, Halloween Spooktacular was the introduction. We met the characters, we've established who they are. Then we get to the Revenge of Jimmy, and it's a good sequel. It fits perfectly. You can watch that one and then go right next to it. We get a little more information on the characters where they live. For example, we see Count Max, Ruby, and Orson house in the coffin. We see a little bit more of the Fright house, and the area of this world, this other scary, not scary, but like Halloween type of world. We don't
Yeah, we get a
really
little bit more out of the exterior of their world.
exactly. So I guess my next question, or my question to ask you is, of the two cartoons that you worked on, I don't know if you've ever told this to anyone, you probably have, but which of the two do you like the most?
Oh my gosh.
Tough
That's weird.
question.
That's asking to choose which of your children you like better. To me, it's like I love them both equally, and then I like certain things about them more than the others. Like in the second one, obviously, here's the thing: the reason that you got to see more of the Fright Side, and not very much, was because we had a bit more money to work with. Like the
Mm-hmm.
constraints of everything in the first one, where you might think, "Oh, that looks a little cheap," or it's like it was the height of animation
No,
of
yeah.
its day.
I-
But
You don't gotta tell
also
me.
more money, more money, more animation is what happened. Um, so like in the first one, I did a lot of art and drawing because it saved money to use on other things. Like, and then it's like I thought like you could just click a button and stuff would change in the computer because I didn't understand how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So but that's not how things happen. So it's like every one of those pumpkins costs money to make, to render over.
Of course,
So I
yes.
was able to paint a background, like when Hannah and Scary Godmother fly to the bright side for the first time, and you see this house kind of come up. That was a big painting that I made, and that saved, I guess, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars by me painting that. So
No,
the second
yeah.
time, because Cartoon Network wanted the second one, we had a little bit of a bigger budget to
Mm-hmm.
work with. So
And
you
it shows. It
could build
shows.
more things, render more things, and have more like equipment that worked, that rendered stuff, and more animators. I think the very first one, there were like 12 people that worked on it.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
it shows. If you go and watch this one and then you go and put on the second one, you can see the animation's a lot more smoother. It's a lot more precise because it's a lot more rendering done. So they had the money. It clearly shows. But I only asked that question because for me, and I think I can see where you're going, because I could never pick between the two. I like you said, there are a lot of things I like about the first one, but there's also a lot of things I like about the second one. And even though it's so easy to say, oh, it's good to go with the modern one, sometimes people like the classics. Everyone says, oh, I prefer the remakes, but the classics are, most people remember that. So for me, I'm with you on that. I can't decide, and I understand where you're coming from, but
but
I'm
to me,
glad
it's
to
like
know.
one big. It's kind of like one big thing when they were playing back to back. It was
Hmm.
just like one cereal commercial in between. The second half of the show, right?
Hmm. Yeah, of
Um,
course, yes.
and one of my favorite memories of the show in general would be because on Halloween, Cartoon Network would play them earlier here in Chicago. Maybe they would play like I feel like it was like in between, like maybe 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, or maybe 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock that it was on. And my neighborhood is pretty hardcore for Halloween as far as we get a lot of kids, and I give out full size candy bars. And yes, I dress as the scary godmother, but I would have my TV on with the sound off, and I'd be giving out trick or treats. And I would come in, and my show was playing on real television, not just the videos that they would send to me for corrections and notes, like the progress.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
uh, I mean, it was old VHS tapes back in the day.
Back in the
They would,
yeah.
they would like FedEx me a tape on for Friday morning, and then I would watch it, and some of it would be just like storyboards, and
Hmm.
then part of it would be just wire rendered, or like wire armature of the characters, and then some of it would be fully rendered, or some of it would just be the characters without rendering, but they were 3D modeled, and then other things would you get like a minute of like full blown well rendered animation, sometimes with like the first time I saw some of the, like there was an exterior of the scary godmother's house, and you pan in from kind of a little bit far away and then go down in, and it might be during the party. But what they had done is I had painted a ton of background paintings, and I had painted props and sets for the inside to dress the inside of those of Scary Godmother's house. So if you look in the back of, if you get the Scary Godmother omnibus, which is available from Dark Horse Comics, it's everything I've published of Scary Godmother to date in one big book. And there's scenes, there's a section that has artwork from the TV show. So everything that I had done, that I had scans of or copies of, was in that book. And it would show, like, you know, I had rendered the living room, and from all the walls, you know, you'd have to do these 2 walls, and then these 2 walls, and these 2 walls, and the kitchen, any place that they were going to be, so they could build it from that. And what they ended up doing also is they would scan my watercolor drawing, but they would be able to lift the painting texture and use that to render the stuff in the house. So it would look like my watercolor, but 3D, which was pretty remarkable. And I remember the first time I saw that, it made me cry, because I was like, how did they do that? It looks like I drew it, but it looks like you can kind of touch it. And oh my God, how did that happen?
No, yeah.
So that was super cool.
Well, the next thing I want to ask you, because speaking of, you know, these cartoons, this particular scene, everybody knows this. Now, I can't play the audio because the audio doesn't come through for some reason, but I think you know what this is. The theme song, the bops, you know, the dance scene. Like, that is one of the best parts in this cartoon, is when you hear that music. It feels so nice. And then there's another part. I'm trying to look for it. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I think I found it right.
Dancing part.
Like,
see,
right here.
We had 2 really great dance numbers. And the guy that was in our Bugaboo costume, there were no eye holes in the costume. Ooh. He had this big head thing on, and he had little tape marks on his feet that were glow in the dark, and also on the stage. And anytime he was dancing, he was doing it he was hitting marks on the floor. So he'd be like, he's like looking down, and you can't tell because he's doing stuff with the head.
No, of course, yeah.
Like, walking around, and like people are kind of leading him, and he even dips a girl.
Dips a girl?
We have to do this. Like, I think it may have been Scary Godmother. It's like, we have to do this in the show.
Well, that music, I don't know how you guys pulled it off. I don't know if you had a part in it, but it is so catchy. And honestly, I think everybody, as soon as they hear it, they automatically know.
Musician, oh my God, I can't remember his last name. I'm sure he's credited in the credits. He did such a fantastic job. He took music that I liked, because I gave him stuff that I was, even like for the theme song and for that, and I told him the kind of rockabilly, punk rockabilly style stuff, or surf punk music that I really thought that they would listen to, that sounded monstery and fun. And he came up with stuff based on the things that I liked. So,
of course, and it worked. That song, the dance song, and also when she's cleaning out, you know, she transforms the living room.
There's a brand new Scary Godmother song, actually, that was made for me by Chicago's #1 rock grunge band, and they made a Scary Godmother song, and I'm hoping that, like, I'll get a file so I can put it online, so they can, so everybody can hear it this month for Halloween.
Nice, that's really cool. I hope to hear it as well, because I always.
By the band Lever, actually.
Oh, yeah. I'm not from Chicago. I'm sorry, so I don't know.
I'm just giving them a shout out.
But you know what? If it's good music, I'm all for it, and I'm probably sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is.
There, you'll like this music, because they made something really similar, but in their style.
Nice. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. But now we get to past 2005. Revenge of Jimmy is playing. The cartoon's a hit. It's playing every year, as you said. But then 10 years come by.
Yep.
Nothing. 15 years go by. Nothing. We're almost at 20 years, Jill. We're almost at 20 years. 2023 will be 20 years ago.
Are you shaming me?
No. I'll explain. I'm not shaming you, but let me keep going. It's been 20 years since we've seen Scary Godmother on the TV. Now, I remember when we spoke.
It's been 20 years?
It's been almost 20 years.
No, like, it played from 2003 to 2013.
Well, no, I'm saying when it first aired, like, that was the last time we'd ever seen, like, you know, it's kind of hard to explain. I don't know. I'm bad with wording. But basically, 2013, it goes off. I don't know what happened. I don't know why Cartoon Network decided to remove Scary Godmother, because they had announced, and it's on the internet. You can look it up. I'm probably sure you've seen it. They've called it a staple of the Halloween season for Cartoon Network. It was a staple that
It
played
was
every year.
staple. It's okay. I believe legally, I can tell you, it's just it was a contractual thing. Like they had a contract for X amount of years with the animation company, and the animation company still owns the rights to broadcast that. It could be broadcast again. Those two shows that are staples that people have nostalgia for could be seen again. I personally don't have any say in that. So, I mean, and I wish a streaming service, Cartoon Network or an app, or Netflix, throw it on with some of their other nostalgic things. It could be picked up from that animation company, and they still exist, and they're
Yeah,
still animation. I still talk to
mainframe.
them. So
Yeah,
it's like
mainframe. Yeah.
all it would need is for someone to go looking for it,
Hmm.
and to get
Well,
the permission or do legal contract with them to say, hey, we want to do the thing you already own again.
mhm.
Because I think that would be terrific.
Well, the numbers were there. The viewership was
They
there.
were.
The fan base was there. And I don't know if you're able to tell me, but was there any talks of a third? What happened? Like, why did it all of a sudden, as
There
it was
was
at the peak,
Cartoon
what
Network.
happened?
Cartoon Network did want a third one, but my contract, their contract ran out with Mainframe. My contract, uh, all the rights reverted back to me, which meant
Yes.
there would have been a new round of legal discussions that had to happen, and I think one of the parties involved, and I know it wasn't me, thought it was probably too much of a pain in the butt.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I
So
wasn't there.
like we could have done another one, and
Oh,
I still would like to do more. In fact, I'm working with the director Zeke Norton of the shows. Like we want to get it back on TV. We're like,
really?
yeah, I mean, we want to do new shows,
That's awesome. Because I'm
and
going to tell you right
we
now.
have like a whole different take, and like a series of episodes that we're pitching. So
Awesome. Jill, like that's awesome to hear. Now, even if it does or doesn't happen, I don't care. But if you want to use what I'm about to say as a reason why it deserves to still be shown, you could take this episode, you could highlight this mark, everybody. I'm gonna put it in the chat. 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 33 seconds. Remember that number. Let me tell you why this cartoon deserves to be on TV and why it deserves to continue. Number one, the fan base is still there. There are people that love this cartoon, people like myself who still remember watching this at a young age. That's number one. Number two, there is nothing wrong with this cartoon. There is nothing wrong with it. Of course, there would have been more expanded had we had a third one. But of course, there's always room for improvement. There's always room. Obviously, we're now in 2020. The animation departments have gotten so much better. So I'm pretty sure if we were to update it, get it a new, a new style, we would see so much different. Because obviously, times have changed, and you know that better than anybody. But mostly, the reason why this cartoon deserves to live on is that it introduces children to a more fun, positive character that can help introduce them into the spooky season without really terrifying the hell out of them, but also doing it in a way.
making you watch horror movies.
Well, I was a lost soul a long time ago, but for those other kids, it's a good way to introduce them. And listen, young adults like myself can get a kick by getting a nice throwback to watching them. And I feel it's a shame that, I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying the situation. It's a shame that it never did get a third. I would have loved to have seen a trilogy. Do I believe it needs a reboot? No.
Well, the third one would have been like if we kept going along the lines that this went. So the first one was an adaptation of the first Scary Godmother book. The second one was the second book. The third one would have been the Mystery Date, and I call it, that one is that brings to close like the Jimmy trilogy, because Jimmy is like the main. He's like the main guy in each one of those. And then the fourth one is the Boo Flu, which would be all rhymey, and it would be so great to adapt that one.
You are making me
It's all
crave for
rhymey.
more Jill.
like, you could have it. I was thinking, like it would be really reminiscent of like a Grinchy style rhyme, or you could try and do something really urban and have like all of it narrated by, my God, what could let me think, could somebody rap the Boo Flu? That would
Oh
be
no.
interesting. Or do some
Somebody
kind of like freestyle of it. I don't
quick,
know.
somebody
There are
in the
people who
videos.
are like much
Do it.
better with cadence and rhythm. I know when I read it, I know the cadence that it's read, but I don't know if when anybody else reads it, if they read it the same way I do.
Hmm. And I will say this, Jill, hearing you and what could have been, it does hurt a little bit because as a
Oh,
child, you want to see something that you love go. But listen, that's the way of life. These things happen. But at least now, hearing that you are working with the original director to possibly get this thing going, I have
we're
all faith.
really committed. Like we love it, and we want to make more of them.
I would recommend. I mean, I don't know where you would go, but I don't know who to go to in this situation. But if I had to pick a company that would probably cherish your work, I wouldn't say Disney. I mean, because Disney, they want everything. They want full control. They want the merchandising. But if I had to pick a company that you could go to and they would cherish your property and let you have full control and everything, um, I don't know if they're still around. Uh, well, I know they are still around, but I don't know what they're doing nowadays. DreamWorks Animation. I mean,
Oh,
it's a long shot.
oh, just that small DreamWorks.
Yeah, they did something called Shrek and a Kung Fu Panda. but
once we have once we have
but
our pitch package put together, I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll just kind of go wherever we can,
maybe
put
Amazon.
it out wherever.
Amazon has been trying to get as much, original content. There's a lot of streaming services out right now. For example,
There is.
so maybe who knows if you can get it on Netflix? Who knows? I mean, that'll
I
be
mean,
pretty
we want
cool.
to do. Okay, I want to do, and I know Zeke agrees with me. I don't think he'd say I'm talking out of turn. We want to do like an episodic show, not just a Halloween show. This would be
Hmm.
a show that would be on. It would just be a series, and it doesn't have it's Halloween because yeah, sure, it's Scary Godmother, but it doesn't take place on Halloween. It's not like a dedicated to Halloween thing. It would be more like a monster thing.
Of course. So it would be not really directly linked to Halloween, meaning like a staple, but you could expand and do. See, that's cool. That's actually very, very cool if that happened.
That's what people are looking for as far as you know the Halloween the holiday special has a connotation that it should only be about the holiday. And if you've read the Scary Godmother um, comics, they're stories that take place on the fright side at all different times of
All
the
different
year.
times.
Like
Absolutely.
it's like a
Christmas.
sitcom set on the fright side, and that's what we would want to focus on.
That's a good. I think that's really good because you get, I would say, in my opinion, more expansion of the worlds. We see more of the fright
Yep.
side. We see more expansion of the human world, the real world. Hannah and all her friends, and maybe who knows? You go into a school aspect. You talk to things like that. You show them what they're like, and then on the fright side, the flip side, the relationship with the characters with Olsen and Hannah. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, and it does suck that it ended so short, meaning like we didn't get more when it was at the peak. But I'm glad that there's still some hope out there, and I'm glad that you guys are still pushing through. And I don't know if you've told this to anybody, but if this is the first time that you've said it on my channel, I feel like it's an honor to hear that. I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
I mean,
that's
I've said that I want to do things before, but I mean, like, I've been writing stuff, and I'm working on other Scary Godmother books right now. The one thing about comics freelancing that's hard to do is like when you have a personal project that you're trying to work on that doesn't already have a publisher, you end up taking work to make your living,
mhm.
and what I do takes a long time. So I find it hard to like, it's like, well, I'm doing money to pay the bill, I'm doing work to pay the bills. Doing Scary Godmother, doesn't get as much attention as it should. But I am working on new stories, and
I think you will do good. And I'm not saying that just because, I'm trying to be sweet, but I'm being serious because like I said, there is a fan base, there is a dedication to the character, not
I
just
wish
from the
I wish everyone was as passionate as you because it's pretty um, energizing to hear you talk about it so lovingly.
No, hey, listen. I may be 20-year-old, a 20-year-old that says things about a cartoon character made for kids, but that was a cartoon character that I watched growing up. And that was a character that kind of made me cherish Halloween in a fun, more positive way. And obviously horror was always there, but like this was different. This was something that hit me dear to my heart. And I may be one person, but I'm pretty sure there are probably others out there that have their own stories and they probably will tell you that that's how important she is. And I think Scary Godmother, in a sense, what you've done with the other books and stories is not only expand, but you've given more room for people to know the character. You've given them more of a relation because you've said many times she's like, she's like a godmother. She's like your fun kind of person that you could relate to, and that's something I always noticed about Scary Godmother is like there is somebody in my life that I can relate to that's similar to Scary Godmother. And I don't know if that's where you're going with, but I wanted to ask you before we talk about Magic Trixie and we put the.
Are we going to talk about Magic Trixie?
Well, it's part of the Halloween thing.
Scary Godmother, and then come back a different time for Magic Trixie.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. We could definitely
I'm just saying because like I don't know how long your show is, but I heard you mention a timestamp.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the maximum I've ever gone is 2 hours. We're only 15 minutes away.
Oh, okay, all right. Because usually I end up being the guest where people go, "We've never had a show this long." It's because I can talk a lot.
Trust me, you should see my friends when we do a live stream. We could go on for 3-4 hours. It's long, but obviously I know when to clock out. But no, we got 15 minutes. So if you would like, we could stick with Scary Godmother. We could stick, and then we'll finish up. But all right. So I guess the next thing I would ask is about the characters. Obviously, Bugaboo is the most recognizable. Mr. Pettybones, Harry the Werewolf, Max, Jimmy, Olsen, all of them are recognizable in their own respective ways. But one of the most standout, like I don't know which one you consider the most standout, but I would think the most standout would be Bugaboo because of how friendly and how cute he is. And I know you have the merchandising right. I believe you said the rights reserved. You have the merchandising right.
I made these backpacks.
Yeah, I remember that. You had a campaign.
I have to have more made because I found out just the other day my website, the people that do my fulfillment for my website alerted me that they're sold out. So I have to get more made.
Yeah, and I was about to say that you have a website. I'm trying to pull it up here. Scary Godmother website.
ScaryGodmother.com.
Scary Godmother. That's it. Yes, that's it. I'm pulling it up right here. We'll share the screen.
I saw the dolls that I was holding before. Let me pan up. Yikes. Pan up. She's up there. On the website because I did a Kickstarter a bunch of years ago.
And it worked. You raised.
It worked. It was like pushing a boulder up a hill. An oiled boulder that had razor blades on the outside of it. But it worked, and she's beautiful and amazing.
Absolutely, the artwork, the dolls. I mean, obviously, I'm a guy, so I wouldn't buy the dolls, but I would buy other things like the books. I'd probably buy the pins.
Buy dolls, but I see where you're coming from.
You know what it is? I'm more of a toy guy, meaning like Doctor Who kind of. I don't know if you like Sonic Screwdriver, TARDIS, things like that. So I'm more of the kind of the hands-on, but I would probably buy. I'd probably buy the Bugaboo. Probably the Bugaboo. I'd probably pick up.
Bugaboo's good, man. I mean, I'm really proud of him. I'm definitely, the minute I get a little extra money, I'm gonna have him made again because he opens up.
Mm-hmm.
His mouth is the pocket part, but also the strap comes off.
Wow, that
he becomes just your plush guy.
Oh, that's
proportionate in size to the doll. So when you stand them next to each other, they work. They're like the way they're supposed to. So that was the plan. And dear Lord, I hope this company that made him is still in business because who knows? Because I definitely would like more of those made.
No, that's probably one of the best-selling items. I've seen people carry around the Bugaboo backpacks.
I only could afford to get 100 made, so there's only 100 out there.
Wow! And now you're ordering more?
He's super limited. Well, I have to contact the company. I did a convention in Mexico City one year, and there was a vendor that had really cute plush when I was there, and I went up to them. I bought some plush for my nieces, and then I asked them. I got their card, and then I contacted them, and I said, "Hey, do you guys make your own plush, or are these designs from something else, and you just manufacture somebody else's designs?" And they said, "Oh, we do custom." And they told me how much it would cost to make a pattern from my drawings, and they also told me what it would cost if I made the pattern and then took the pattern to China instead of use them. And I said, "No, I like your plush. I want you to make the plush. If I work with you, I just need to know if I can afford to throw this on my credit card or whatever." And so they told me how much that once they decided how they would build it, they made me a prototype for a certain amount of money. And then they said, "Well, this would be the most expensive thing we've ever made because it's so involved." And of course, because me. And I said, "Well, that's cool." So I could only afford to get 100 because the cost to make them was
yes,
really high.
of course,
And
yes.
then I would like to ever be able to, and to ship them here and then to store them somewhere costs a lot of money. So, and to get them to a convention. I remember the first year I took them to New York Comic Con to have them shipped somewhere. It's like you end up with like a giant box that's, this big with 50 guys in it. And I'm like, man, I hope I sell all these because I don't know how I'm going to figure out how to ship these back home on a Sunday in New York City. And then other stuff. That's like everybody's hope at New York Comic Con. That's why everyone goes crazy on Sunday selling things, because you ship everything out there, but you never intend to try and figure out how to get it back. Because one, either you have to figure out how to get it across town to your hotel in Manhattan. And you're like, how am I going to do that even? And then the next day you would have to figure out, now how am I going to either shove all this in my suitcase? Not going to happen. Or many suitcases. Or how am I going to box this up, get it across to a FedEx in Manhattan, and then get to the airport? It's like, it's too difficult. So you're like, it's always a juggling of how much stuff should I bring with me? How much do I know I'll sell? Or how much will I, be able to manage to get back with me? So,
well, this is your website, and obviously you can see right there.
That's him. He's sold out right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, hey, listen, I told you there is a fan base, Jill. They're there. But quickly discussing also on the topic of I'll tell you right now, I've always made a mistake at Comic-Con. I never buy from people I want to, and I promise you I will not make that same mistake again. So as soon as this comes back in stock, I'm buying it. I don't care how much it is. I'm buying it. And if you see my name, Michael Frasca, just know it's me. Maybe send me a little autograph in there. I'm just playing.
Well, anything that you buy on this site, like what I had to do, there's a fulfillment center that mails it out for me because I don't have anywhere in my place to keep all the stuff that I would be selling, right? So I have to ship it out to a different warehouse. And every time my website gets an order, it pings to them. And they're in Indiana, near Indianapolis, actually. They're considered the Chicago warehouse, which is kind of weird. So anything that gets bought on the website, I can't sign because it's not here with me. If it's at a convention, or, if randomly, I would find I found 2 of these guys, and you see on my Facebook or my Instagram that I have 2, then I could sign that kind of stuff. But anything from the website, it's either pre-signed when I send it there, and it can't be personalized, or you just, it's something tiny and I can't send it.
That's fine. Hey,
Yeah.
if once this pandemic stuff blows over and we're able to go back to Comic-Con, I'm seeing you right there. So
I know. This would be the weekend for it.
yeah, this would have been the Comic-Con.
Yeah, I'd be in New York right now.
There is one thing I wanted to ask you. I forgot about the cartoon. I was going to talk about your website because I really like these pins that you've created. These are really, really nice. But I want to ask you, I know you've already discussed your plans and intentions, what you want to do with the cartoons, the series stuff. But if you had to pick a story that you would have chose, now I know you said you wanted to do the trilogy with Jimmy, but if there was one story that you really, really wanted to do, that you really, really wanted to make into a cartoon, bring it to live action, or not live action, I'm sorry, to animation, what would that story have been?
You mean the story, like one of the existing Scary Godmother stories?
Yes.
Okay, and I assume you mean it doesn't have to be like a 1 hour special.
No, it doesn't have to be
Like
a
it
one
could
hour
be
special.
because some of the comic book stories are much more involved.
Hmm.
And let me think about that.
No, yeah,
Um,
it could be anything. It could be a short. It could be a.
Probably Wild About Harry,
Hmm.
because it just it orchestra. He's such a good pain in the butt, and it's easy to hang stories off of him because he's got so much personality. It might not be the best personality, but it's a lot of personality. The funny thing about Scary Godmother is, even though the books are named for her, and if a series would be named for her too, she's kind of the most normal character. She's the
Hmm.
character that stories revolve around, really, where um like I did a Bloody Valentine special, which was about the vampires, having a fight or breaking up, and then it was other Valentine stuff that happened in it. And then Wild About Harry was about his mom kicking him out of the house, and then he ends up at Scary Godmother's house, and then he ends up at the vampire's house, and then he ends up out in the woods, like working for, like doing a monster job. Um, but there's Ghouls Out for Summer was the first time there was a story about Scary Godmother going off and doing something herself, but then she gets kind of ensorcelled by an evil fairy, and then she's really not in it very much anymore either. So it's like this. So there's a lot of stuff that happens around her, but not
Hmm.
necessarily directly to her. So I have to focus on that. But Wild About Harry is just a really fun story, and it has so many interesting things that happen in it, and I think it plays off of all of the characters' interactions and connections with each other.
Oh
Because that
yeah.
lasts, like we could make that last, even if we cut it down, I suppose we could make it last, 3 episodes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I like Harry. I truly love the character of Harry. I always feel bad for him. I know he's a troublemaker, but come on, he's innocent. He's just like a.
He's selfish, um, but it's like he's selfish and willful and you know kind of into all of his things, like in a way that the worst of fanboy qualities, but he's also so self-assured, right? you know Harry doesn't really, he blows he blows down everything. He like bursts through the world doing what he wants. I suppose he's like my Cartman character if you think about it, right?
Oh
That
man.
he's like the world revolves around him. Uh, but
Hey, he's
usually,
innocent. He's an innocent
the
girl.
things usually work out for him, um, and for everybody else. It's because he's not the nicest guy, but
No,
I
yeah, but in
I don't want to make him like a complete dick, right? But
no, yeah, I get where you're
he's the
going.
culmination of like weird fan behavior that I've seen throughout the years of people who, they like their thing, they're so into their thing, they're kind of oblivious to the world around them, but then they have their little infighting with other people who like their other things. And it's like people who kind of look down their nose at people who just aren't even aware of the stuff that they're into. It's like, oh well, of course you don't know this. um, so I guess that's the kind of attitude he has. But yeah, I he's easy to throw. He's like, you could have something nice happening, and then you throw Harry in the middle of it and see what happens.
No, I
Like,
know where
what
you're
would
coming
happen to
from.
Harry in a football game? Or like, I did a drawing one time around Super Bowl because I'm not a sport person. I mean, unless I like my sports, wrestling, MMA,
Yes, wrestling.
um, uh, if you're wearing a kilt and throwing like a caber over something, or if you're picking a big haystack, or a world's strongest something or other, like a guy pulling a truck with his teeth. These are the sports I like. I'm not necessarily a fan of baseball. I mean, I've gone to baseball. I tolerate sport. I want to see two knights, having a sword fight. I want to see Bowie knife fighting. I want to see that kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
So, but the fact that like the whole country comes to a stop for Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and I always would think how silly that the guys that like football like this make fun of people that go to Comic-Con, because you're the same animal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I showed one side. It was Harry with all of his long box on a trolley and his merchandise, like his Ghost Cup and all of his other things, and his Spectral 6 T-shirts and everything he needs to be signed, and his special gear that he's wearing. And on the other side was a guy, like I made it a monster guy, but he was in all his football gear, and he had like face paint and the signed jersey and the special tickets and the celebrity shoes. It's like it's all the nerd stuff, but for sports. It's the same exact thing for a different type of genre.
Exactly.
And both of them are staring at each other, looking at each other, grimacing and going, nerd, like, because they have disdain for the thing that's not like them, when they're really actually the same, the opposite side of the same coin.
Of course. And people like that, I look at it and say, hey man, you've got your demons and skeleton in your closet, so we'll find out
That's
soon.
right.
Well, Jill,
Like,
I would love to keep going, but it is officially 12:06 a.m. here,
it's
and
tomorrow.
it's tomorrow on my end, and we
That's
have
right.
reached the 2-hour mark. Now, I do have a couple things. There is a couple things I do want to do before we end this episode, this show. For starters, I wanted to follow up and ask you. You're a big fan of wrestling. I love wrestling. I've been a WWE fan, but AEW's been taking my favorite. But I've heard a lot of people say that you've designed ring gear. Um,
Yeah.
Most notably Daniel Bryan. Is that true?
Yes, I haven't done it for him for a few years, but from when he got into NXT and he first hit WWE, I did all of his ring gear up until he won WrestleMania,
I
and
see.
it was very cool to do. I really enjoyed that.
That's
There was
actually
only
I
one set that I didn't do, and that one had like bamboo on it. It was very pretty.
I remember. I think I actually kind of remember that now. Wow,
Yeah,
that
but
was
I mean, I
you.
did all the others, all the other stuff, and it was funny. He was a friend of mine had a blog called Hot Nerds Reading Comics, and so it was there was a picture of him on it, and he was reading Beast of Burden, which is a comic I do. So on Twitter, I just and my friend said, "Oh yeah, and he's on Twitter," and I said, "Oh shoot!" So I just mentioned him and said, "Hey, I saw you reading my comic. Who's your favorite character? I'll you win a drawing of your favorite character." He was like, "What, really?" So then we started DMing each other, and then he wanted to know if I ever thought about designing wrestling gear, because he wanted really awesome gear, and I was like, "Oh sure, I can do that for you." And then he told me, I was like, "Do you want to stick with American Dragon, or are you going in a different thing? Are you keeping your own name? What's the deal?" And he told me what he wanted to incorporate into it, and then I kind of ran from his ideas, like, and did some stuff. And once I made the first gear that he really liked, then I kind of built on elements in that gear. And then when storylines would change, I would, I remember the first night, like when he started going, yes, 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 I immediately started designing yes gear. Like while I was watching the show, I was like, "Oh, that's going somewhere."
That's
And then
going. Look what
all of
happened.
this amazing yes gear out there. My favorite yes gear never got a chance to get made, because it was the night he went, "No." And I was like, oh my God, no. And then he was like, "No." And then everyone was going, "No, no, no." And I have this incredible gear that, like, if there's, maybe I'll make a little book of all my wrestling gear, or put it in an art book and show what almost was. But
Hey, I will say some of his gear, maybe some that you did, because I gotta go back if they ever. But at WrestleMania Access, because Daniel Bryan is considered one of the most popular used superstars, especially his win at WrestleMania 30. They've got some of his NXT gear up again, something you probably designed. If
Well,
you
his
ever get,
NXT, like he was out of NXT at the time. He had just debuted in WWE
oh,
when
so
he
like he
performed that
was.
like, choking. He just choked the Miz and
Oh
all
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. They probably have that his
And
debut
then
gear and stuff
and
like
then
that.
so
SummerSlam.
when he first started WWE, that's when he had gear, and like I would have new designs for him as much as humanly possible. Uh, just based on storylines and how much he would use it and where he thought, like usually it was like for every pay-per-view you'd want to have new gear, or he would say no, wait. And I remember his first WrestleMania entrance, that 18 seconds where like Sheamus kicked him in the face, uh, but he wanted something that like went along with his very self-centered haughty character, and I was like, what about like Tully Blanchard style robe? We could work that in. I was like, how long are they going to give you for your storyline? Are you going to be able to work into like this intense Ric Flair style ego, or are they going to push it there almost immediately? And he goes, it probably will be immediately. And I was like, well, I'll give you three options, and then you can see which one your gear guy, because then there's guys that have
Yeah,
to make
guys that have to press
and
and
the
make
guys
it.
that made it, they're really amazing. They're called Main Event Gear,
Mm.
and I would talk with them very often because I don't do it very often, and I can't do anything to this extent. But I sew. I know how to use a sewing machine. I know how to put things together and do patterns. So I would always be really cognizant of what I designed for him.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I would suggest fabric, or different stuff, and I would try and figure out. I would write notes on the side of my drawings to the guys that designed the gear, because I would say, okay, I'm not sure if this is possible because it might be too many layers, but this is what I'm thinking about. But they also do screen printing, so it's like they have a huge setup where they can do a lot of different style of stuff to make things. But I know that it was that his really fancy glittery robe, and I was like, I have to be able to wear that one day, dude. I want to borrow that from you. But they had all these rhinestones and Swarovski crystals on it. It was so
Wow.
expensive, and it was there for 18 seconds. And
What?
it cost so much money, and the guys rushed it. I mean, I know that they drove with the very last minute up to WrestleMania. They would do this for a lot of the people because they make a lot of gear for the guys that are there. But they delivered it straight to him, and it was this awesome robe that they made, and there was a dragon on the back of it, and it had all his colors and stuff in it, and boom, 18 seconds, and he was out.
Man. Well, hey, at least you got to be a staple of one of the best wrestlers from me growing up, because I remember the Yes Movement and his Blossom, and Daniel Bryan will always have a place in my heart because of his, what he did with Connor and all that stuff. But
Heck yeah.
also, quickly before we end, also, I just was notified that you are getting the Milestone Founders Award. Supposedly, it's supposed to be happening this year at Comic Con, but you will be inducted into the Harvey Awards Hall of Fame.
Yes, I
So,
that will happen. I think this Friday. The Harvey Awards ceremony is done uh, online, and I did an acceptance video for it. I got that the other like last week, so I pre-recorded that, and there are other guest speakers, so they're gonna do the ceremony virtually this year.
yeah, they did something similar to like DC Fandom, where they pre-record and then they loop it for 24 hours. But
Oh, cool.
but it's
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
a huge honor.
Oh, well, let me tell you something, Jill. Congratulations, first of all. You have definitely earned this award.
Thank
Um,
you.
you, I would say you deserve everything you've gotten. And
Thank you.
before I end, before I give my final say, I want you to take this chance to use this chance to kind of give your final words to anybody watching this, and if there's anything that they should take away from tonight, from our interaction as one fan to the artist, and to people watching this video and podcast, if you made it this far, you deserve a medal too.
I hope
But
they do. Well, I feel
but
like I listen to so many podcasts while I work uh, that, and I'm always interested in new YouTube channels and anything that keeps my brain going while I'm drawing stuff. Because people are like, oh, we'll watch the show, and I can try and do that, but I end up watching the show more than I end up working, and that's not good. So if there's nothing to watch and just stuff to listen to, it's easier. So maybe somebody is using our conversation to entertain them while they do something else. I don't know. I feel like if I had another question, there might be some way for me to do an outro, right? I mean, I say let's just say it's never too late to start anything you want to do. I hear a lot of people who say they like comics, or they want to do a YouTube channel, or they want to learn how to, do some kind of a craft or a skill, or they want to change the focus of their education. It's like, look at the world right now. It's such a scary, weird place. The only good thing that we can do personally for ourselves is to follow the thing that you want. I mean, we're here to make an impact in a good way, right? So if my purpose is to make up stories to entertain people, then I'm going to keep doing that. But if you want to do that, or if there's something that you want to make or contribute to the world, it's like, I feel that we're here to add to the place we live instead of just exist in it. So make something. Also, watch some spooky movies this month. If you're going to be quarantined for Halloween, which we should be, so we can stop this virus from spreading, get creative with how you do spooky stuff.
absolutely.
Spook out the window.
And with that, we have reached the end.
Yeah.
All right, guys, before I say goodnight and before I sign off, before we end this, I do like to do what I usually do. I usually like to give a little outro myself to the guests coming on. I haven't done this in a while, so I'm a little rusty in places, but this is unscripted. This is just from me and me alone. Normally, I do this to people that have had a huge, significant impact on me. Mostly, I've done this a few times with YouTubers that have played a crucial role in me becoming a YouTuber. Well, Jill, I'm going to be upfront and I'm going to be honest with you. I never thought this day would happen. I never thought I would say I sat and interviewed and had a fun night with the creator of Scary Godmother.
It's like you're in my living room and I'm in your mom's bedroom.
Exactly. It's like you never think these things would happen. And 15 years ago, a young me sitting at home watching these things, saying to myself, man, I wish I would meet the person who created that. Well, if I had a time machine and go back and tell my younger self, be like, kid, you have no idea what's coming. But let me just say, Jill, to me, you are a phenomenal artist. I don't think my words can express it. I think the fans that you have built, I think everything that you have done have proven what you have. But the only thing that I can give you, at least from my end, is the impact. Your creation of Scary Godmother has impacted me so much that it has made me have a deep appreciation for the originality and things that come along, especially in Halloween. Your style of art is phenomenal. The way you use your colors, the way you make your details, and most of all, just the way you bring these characters to life. But in focusing on Scary Godmother, Jill, I don't know if I'll ever be able to say it as best as I can tonight, but if it weren't for your creation, for you writing that book, if it weren't for you going through with those cartoons, and if it wasn't for you pushing this, I don't think, in my opinion, I would have had a great childhood, especially on
Oh
Halloween.
my gosh. That's
And I know it's hard to say, but like thinking about it now, because I look back and I say, there have been very few cartoons that I could say were really a big impact. And the only ones that ever had an impact was Ed, Edd n Eddy Kids Next Door, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and then Scary Godmother. Everything
Aw.
else, everything after that was just, what I watched as I grew up. But the point is this, Jill. You have had a real impact on me. Your creation has had a real impact on me by the way that I celebrate the holiday, but the way that I look at it and the way I cherish it. And I'm going to make sure whenever I have the time come for when I have my own time, when I have children, I'm going to make sure no matter how old, no matter how outdated it looks, I'm going to show them these cartoons and I'm going to show them and I'm going to tell them I met the woman that created it. And then I'm
Well,
going
I'm gonna have to make some more books so your kids will have more books.
I'm buying the books too. I'm making sure I buy the book. I'm not going to miss out on my chance, but I want to say from the bottom of my heart, Jill, thank you. Not just for coming on, not just for being an artist, but just thank you for creating something that is just so timeless and just amazing to my heart. And just thank you for giving this character life. Thank you for making her, in my opinion, something that can be related to. You've said it many times in interviews, you've said it many times with fans, and I know your fans know who you are, Jill, and they're all watching you. They'll watch this on replay and they'll see that you're a great artist, you're a great woman. And the character of Scary Godmother, I believe, should live on. The new children nowadays should definitely, I hope one day, I hope I see it again on TV, and I'll definitely be behind you 100%, Jill. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for spending this Wednesday night with me.
Well, Thursday morning now for me.
Now it's Thursday for you.
And with that, the live stream is saying Jill is awesome. Hashtag Jill's awesome. Great show. That is where we end this tonight, guys. So everybody, thank you all for sticking with me, watching this amazing podcast with the great Jill Thompson. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you disliked the video, hit that dislike button. That helps circulate my videos as well. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, night, wherever you're watching this. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. And I will see you all on the next episode of Techno.